It's hard to believe that it's been a year now since coronavirus arrived and changed the world. As the world is braced for another round of lockdowns over the past couple of weeks, it has led us once again to question how effective these lockdowns actually are at saving lives. Proponents of the lockdowns have said that they value lives over the economy. The question is the idea of lives versus the economy a false choice? Would it be more accurate to say that we are left with the choice of lives versus lives? Welcome to the Zeitgeist, guys. It's important to note when talking about the lockdowns that there were a handful of countries that did not lock down. So what were the effects on these countries that didn't lock down? While they did take some mild precautions, Sweden notoriously refused to lock down, as their leading epidemiologists referred to lockdowns as killing a fly with a hammer. While Sweden has the 11th to highest death rate per capita in Europe, its case numbers are currently 90% below their peak from June, and they are trending downwards as much of the EU has seen a resurgence in cases. Even more interesting and much lesser known is that Japan also did not lock down. Japan has a large elderly population and is extremely densely populated, yet it boasts one of the lowest death rates on Earth with just 15 deaths per million people. Japan didn't close their borders, they didn't do large-scale testing, and while they recommended for some businesses to close, this was not mandatory. Several explanations have been offered to try and explain this. One, that the Japanese people are very well behaved, therefore they voluntarily socially distanced and adhered to recommendations. And two, that similar viruses had previously made their way through the population, and the cross-immunity between viruses provided with T cells or antibodies to fight COVID-19. This explanation, or Factor X as some call it, has been used to explain the extremely low death rates in other Asian countries, like South Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, and Thailand. Lockdowns began being implemented in the United States in mid-March, and the government followed up by passing the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, that included stimulus checks, enhanced unemployment, and the Paycheck Protection Plan in an effort to mitigate fallout from the lockdowns. Even with these measures taken, a report by MarketWatch in mid-July revealed that nearly 73,000 businesses have closed their doors permanently. According to an estimate by Yelp, that number is now nearly 98,000 businesses. Many people lost their health insurance when losing their jobs. Many were evicted from their homes because they could not pay rent, and the suicide rate has skyrocketed. These negative effects have taken place despite the US's seemingly infinite ability to print money. If the effects of the lockdowns have caused the GDP in developed countries to spike 10 to 20% on average, then what have been the effects on the developing world? Many vulnerable populations in lesser developed countries lack access to a social protection system, so lockdowns necessary to save lives from COVID will have the counterproductive effect of increasing poverty, hunger, and destitution. Among those most exposed to the immediate social impacts of COVID-19 are young people, and in particular young women, who tend to be overrepresented in these countries' sizable informal economies. Many people lack access to savings and work in the economic sectors that have been most impacted by social distancing restrictions. One estimate finds that only 1 in 26 jobs can be done from home in the poorest countries in the world, compared to about 1 in 3 in the richest. In April, Executive Director of the World Food Program, David Beasley, said that we ran the risk of a famine of biblical proportions. It is estimated that 138 million additional people are set to face desperate levels of hunger, pushing the total number to nearly 265 million people worldwide. Part of this is being attributed to the shutdown of supply chains to over 36 countries, with people who are completely reliant on food assistance. In addition, exports from developing countries have fallen drastically due to much lower global demand and trade restrictions. This fall in demand has been most visible in regard to global oil prices, which notoriously dropped below $0 per barrel in May. Manufacturing sectors have also been hit by a demand shock, as shown by the collapsing garment industry in Cambodia, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, which have seen an 80% loss in revenue. The agriculture industry in developing nations has also faced troubles resulting from delayed fertilizer shipments. Due to travel bans, there will also be many less migrant workers, therefore cutting down on international remittances, which has become vital for some families in developing countries to survive. Arguably, the largest industry to be affected by the lockdowns is the tourism industry. Tourism employs 1 in every 10 people on Earth and provides livelihoods to hundreds of millions more. Some countries have seen their tourism industry be almost entirely decimated. In addition to those working directly in tourism are the hundreds of millions in the informal economy who will miss out on the revenue brought to them as a result of tourism. The lockdowns also increase the threat of illnesses that have been cured, such as the measles. Last year in the Congo alone, the measles killed over 6,000 people and malaria killed 17,000. And these numbers are greatly at risk of inflating due to an economic crash. Nearly 120 million children in 37 countries are at risk of missing their measles vaccine shots this year, as preventative and public health campaigns take a backseat to policies put in place to contain coronavirus. In March, the World Health Organization issued guidelines indicating that mass vaccination campaigns should be put on hold to maintain physical distancing and minimize COVID-19 transmission. It is estimated that a mere 15% decrease in routine measles vaccinations, which is a plausible result of lockdowns and disruption of health services, could raise the burden of childhood deaths by nearly 250,000 in poorer countries. Considering that 9 million people died last year as a result of starvation, millions more could be lost this year from starvation and missed vaccinations. The economies of the developing world will likely take years to recover, erasing many of the gains made towards eradicating poverty worldwide. At the moment, the worldwide death count from COVID is nearly 1.4 million people. However, it is unknown how many more lives will be lost. With all of this being said, that leaves us with the question: have the lockdowns been worse than the virus? Many people called others selfish to defy the lockdowns, but was it actually selfish to push for them? That's the Zeitgeist, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing all of your comments down below. I'll be tackling a wide range of topics, so if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.